Welcome and good morning. I'm going to give our participants just a couple more seconds to get logged on and join the webinar. Well, good morning. I am Danielle Casey, the President and CEO for the Albuquerque Regional Economic Alliance. I am thrilled to have an amazing group of partners and experts online today for this webinar, and which is really the unveiling of a significant joint partnership report that's going to be a recurring publication that we're going to work on together going forward to promote the greater Albuquerque region, the advantages in the market, and also regular updates on key opportunity sites in our market, as well as trends in greater Albuquerque. So a little bit of housekeeping today. Anyone joining the webinar that has a question as we go through the program, and we will take Q&A at the end, please put that in the Q&A section. For any reason, if we don't get to everyone's questions by the end of the time allotted today, that will allow us to follow up with you and also make sure we've answered everything. If you have any issues or questions or challenges with the webinar program itself or technical assistance needs, please put it in the chat. We are recording this program today, so hopefully if you hear all kinds of interesting and wonderful things, later on you will get a link to the video once we post it on our social media channels, so you can share it with others and maybe watch a repeat, because I know you're going to be that excited about it. All right, well, today's program, again, is an in-depth look at an NAI SunVista and area, Albuquerque Regional Economic Alliance industrial report. We're going to have a conversation with research staff on the area team and also wonderful leaders with NAI SunVista. We're going to talk to you a little bit about a really amazing online tool that we have for site searches that includes a lot of additional big data. We're also going to feature some key industrial and redevelopment properties in the market. But to really get us going today is an amazing leader in our market and community. Before I introduce her, I do also want to recognize our diamond and platinum contributors that make the work that area does possible. And I'd also like to thank all of our gold contributors. And as you will notice, NAI SunVista is also one of those amazing contributors. We thank you all very much. All right, so to formally kick it off today, Debbie Harms is a commercial real estate broker licensed in both New Mexico and Texas with more than 40 years of experience. She holds the CCIM, Certified Commercial Investment Member, SIOR, Society of Office Industrial Realtors, and a CPM. So there's so many credentials, we couldn't even fit them all on this slide. She's a certified property manager as well, designations, and she has a bachelor's degree in business administration, management, and accounting, and is a licensed New Mexico general contractor. There's very little she doesn't do. She's an owner, CEO, and qualifying broker for NAI SunVista. It's a full-service commercial real estate firm, as well as co-owner of SunVista Enterprises, a general contracting company in Albuquerque. She was the 2019 chair for NAIOP New Mexico and serves on the board of directors for area, formerly named Albuquerque Economic Development as an organization in the past. She's a trustee for the Albuquerque Community Foundation and president of the Pope Joy Hall Board of Trustees. She's also a past president of the Commercial Association of Realtors New Mexico and past president of CCIM New Mexico, and a former trustee for Sandia Preparatory School. This community is thankful to have her and lucky and really amazing because of her contributions. So with that, let me hand it over to you, Debbie, to kick us off.
Okay, thanks, Danielle. I appreciate that. I am with NAI SunVista, which is a full-service commercial real estate brokerage firm. We're based here in Albuquerque. We're licensed in both New Mexico and Texas. We have served our clients for 31 years, and we're honored to be co-presenting this morning with Area. This joint industrial market report is an important collaboration for us between AREA and SunVista. The information that is being presented is both timely and prescient. SunVista can assist AREA by keeping them up to date with current market listings. We feel like this is super important in the times that we are currently living in. And we feel like it's important for the work that AREA does. AREA needs to know if there are other possibilities in the market as well as current listings, and these other possibilities which might work but may not be currently on the market. SunVista's broad reach with property owners in our area is a strong factor, which adds to the tools that are available to AREA. They need leading edge information in order to be confident in their presentations and their conversations with prospective businesses and employers. We believe that this collaboration is a win-win for our community. And now I'm going to let the real industrial market experts introduce themselves and discuss the industrial report. Okay, take it away, guys.
Thank you, Debbie. And good morning, everyone. As you see on the screen, we're welcomed by our friends and colleagues with NAI SunVista. By way of introduction, my name is Chad Matheson, and I serve as the Vice President for Economic Competitiveness on behalf of the AREA team. And before we dive into some of the data that lives inside the report itself, I think it would make sense for us to just go around the table and provide some self-introductions. And Alex, I'd love to turn it over for you to get that started.
Wonderful. Thanks, Chad. Good morning, everyone. My name is Alex Pulliam. I am a senior advisor at NAI SunVista. I specialize in land and industrial. I've been in the industry for a few years now, but prior to my time here, I was with a large general contractor for nearly 10 years as a minority shareholder. I am a native to New Mexico and excited to build the community around me through a new lens. I've been working on some really exciting projects here at SunVista and are proud to be part of this report with AREA. I think it's important to our community to better understand how the industrial market is working with the community around us and to keep growing economic-based jobs here in Albuquerque. So with that, I'll turn it over to the next one on our team, Janine Posen.
Thank you, Alex. Hello, everybody. My name is Janine Posen. I am an advisor with NAI SunVista. Like Alex and Riley on our panel, I specialize in industrial, but more specifically in land development. I have 15 years of experience. I came from the landscape architecture and land development world. And to top that off, I was able to be the director of marketing for NAI SunVista for 6 years. So understand commercial real estate marketing and understanding the markets and how they affect our community and where the right locations. Very excited about this report. I think it's been a long time coming. Obviously, the industrial market is at the top of conversation, and it's a real honor to be on this panel and to collaborate with AREA to bring some much needed information to not just our community, but outside investors to see the real opportunity here. So with that, I'd like to pass the baton to Riley McKee.
Thanks, Janine. My name is Riley McKee. I'm a director at SunVista. I also specialize in land and industrial. Very excited to be collaborating with AREA on this project, not only for the content of the report, but for the implications of bringing more industrial real estate users into Albuquerque, which will build the local economy with economic-based jobs and just a lot of optimism for the community.
Beautiful. Well, thank you all. You know, not only is it content rich, but it looks pretty good too. If we could advance to the next slide, there we go. What you all see on the slide right now is really just an illustration of the report itself. And I wanted to present just a little bit of a call to action for the folks in our audience this morning to go ahead and scan that QR code that you see on the right-hand side of the slide. That will take you to a landing page where you'll have the option to download the report itself. And I think one really exciting element of this report specifically is in our partnership together, NAI will be putting together a quarterly insert that runs alongside this from an industrial perspective as well. So not only will we be collaborating on an annualized basis to update these figures and generate new content and information for the market to digest, but we'll have that reoccurring quarterly insert as well, which will be really, really helpful and keep everyone up to date with industrial trends and conditions going on. So just to dive into, I think some of the kind of the top headlines themselves that live within the report, starting from an operating cost perspective. You know, one of the things that we maintain due diligence on is to look at not just industry growth dynamics and absorption dynamics that are going on within the metropolitan region, but also how do our costs shake out relative to certain investment profiles. And what you can see here is an example of a total operating cost comparison against some of our primary competitive metropolitan peers in the context of the Southwest and Western part of the United States, where we're looking at an industrial manufacturing facility at 150,000 square feet leased, employing about 250 people to include not only your machine operators and assemblers, but also your administrative and support, your business operations specialists, and your transportation material moving occupations. It's really important to analyze a facility across the full scope of occupations that they may employ, so we can understand in a true sense what might our competitive cost rank be against some competitive peers in the context of the United States. And what's really exciting to see at the end of the day, you know, against the group average, Greater Albuquerque holds about a 5% total operating cost savings against this sample of peers, about 2.5% across payroll, but more importantly, about 16% across real estate in this context for industrial manufacturing space at 150,000 square feet. But I think, you know, at times balancing cost is just one dynamic of the equation. And going to the next slide, we can see more specifically job growth dynamics or opportunities that exist for industrial investment, industrial growth here within the Greater Albuquerque region. So what you're looking at on the slide here is really our top performing industrial sectors, if you will, those with sufficient, if not significant, critical mass, and have expanded greater than or equal to 10% over the last 5 years, 2016 to 2021. In aggregate, these sectors employ 10,600 people in the regional market and collectively expanded 32% over the past 5 years, as I mentioned. And that actually, from a comparative rank perspective, ranks number 2 in the Southwest for metropolitan regions with 500,000 or more in population. And so what's really exciting to see as we begin to shape and understand our regional value proposition for industrial sector investment, you can see some very high value add manufacturing related industries experiencing some of the fastest growth, especially as it relates from a comparative perspective. So looking as an example, pharmaceutical and medicine manufacturing, almost 90% job growth over the past 5 years and nearly 1,000 people employed. We rank first in the context of Southwestern metros of that size, as I described. And so what we look for from a regional economic development investment perspective is to see a strong mix of industrial categories that are performing well and outpacing national growth trends here within the region. A couple more that I'll highlight just for illustrative examples are fit in the context of food and beverage manufacturing, as well as some of your more high value add manufacturing industries like semiconductor and electrical components. Over the past 5 years related to semiconductors, we rank second in the Southwest in terms of job growth, with about 3,600 people employed within that sector itself. So these are just some of the kind of key insights that live in the context of not only this report, but what we can do on a collaborative basis moving forward to identify where hotspots of growth might be around the metropolitan area, and identifying specifically what space uses could fit in the context of some of our top performing industrial sectors. So I'm going to close out there in terms of kind of the data deep dive. I think there's more value in opening this up to our partner experts here on the call, and really kind of just posture some key questions that we can answer as a group and kind of work through. And the first one, Bradley, I'd like to call on you first. You know, across the nation, demand for industrial space has really exploded. You know, I'd be curious if you could talk us through some of the top level trends that you've seen nationally, how those trends are influencing product growth locally within the region, and where you might see some unique opportunities for greater Albuquerque in the context of the industrial market.
Absolutely. Thanks for that question, Chad. There are both long-term and short-term trends that have contributed to really robust demand for industrial real estate across the nation. The longer term trend really goes back all the way to 1996 when Amazon.com was initially founded and when the concept of purchasing products online really became a real thing. And since then, the percentage of retail sales that have come about as a result of e-commerce has steadily increased. It started, when maybe 1-2% in the late 90s, early 2000s. And by just before the pandemic was up to about 11-12%. And then when the pandemic hit, it skyrocketed up to 15% as people were forced into their homes and unable to go to the store to buy products. And everything that is sold on a website is warehoused somewhere. And so in the early years, the major beneficiaries of this boom in e-commerce were the larger markets. Think Phoenix, Dallas, Denver, Los Angeles. But as that share of retail sales from e-commerce has increased, the benefits have begun to percolate down to smaller markets like Albuquerque, Boise, Tucson, where we now have our own Amazon distribution warehouse in excess of 1 million square feet for our market and statewide. Some shorter term trends that have kind of come about recently and specifically as a result of COVID are changes to inventory management systems. Prior to COVID, a lot of these e-commerce providers applied the just-in-time methodology where they housed just enough inventory to get out to the consumers and tried to keep it really tight for cost savings. And then we all know what happened during the pandemic. I don't think anybody will ever forget the shortages of toilet paper early on. And later in the pandemic, shortages of more critical items like baby formula, which was a real issue about a year ago. And so a lot of these e-commerce providers are deciding that they need to keep more inventory on hand, which means they need more warehouse space to house it. And that's not just in the major markets, it's nationwide in every market just about. And as Albuquerque is on the cusp of becoming a MSA with 1 million people, depending on how you slice it, we're getting a lot more attention from the companies that see it as having enough critical mass to establish a permanent presence, and then also allows us to be a regional provider to smaller communities across the state and even in other states that we can better reach than markets outside. Another trend is there's been a lot said about reshoring and nearshoring of operations. This stems from COVID as well. Haven't seen a lot of it impact New Mexico yet. I think it's a longer term proposition that's going to take some time to ferret out, but companies are taking a serious look at moving their operations out away from Asian markets and back into the US. And I think the United States as a whole will benefit from that and potentially New Mexico. So all of those factors kind of contribute to the growth of distribution space in Albuquerque. There's a lot of projects underway that are being built to accommodate that. There are also some local dynamics that are contributing to the market as well. Many of us have heard about what's going on at Kirtland Air Force Base with the Air Force Research Labs and the Space Force. That has led to demand for high-tech manufacturing and lab space. And one of the projects that's underway is the MaxQ development, which we'll speak about later, to cater to those types of uses. And then also the film industry in New Mexico has contributed to demand for a lot of industrial real estate. We've all heard about Netflix's major investment in the city, also NBC Universal, among other production companies. And this has also led to providers for those industries to move into town, catering companies, set equipment companies. There's a lot of groups that chase after the tails of those companies as they come in. So overall, there's a lot of various inputs to the demand for industrial real estate, and just about every one of them is favorable. I think the picture is a lot different for office or retail real estate stemming from the pandemic, but just about everything after the pandemic has been favorable to industrial real estate.
That's excellent. Thank you for that response, Riley. You know, it stresses the importance of why we need to stay connected regularly to make sure that we have our finger on the pulse of those trends and conditions for the market and nationally. And Alex, I want to pivot to you now and kind of put a finer point on a couple of the topics that he had mentioned. You know, certainly reshoring, nearshoring is one that we see in the headlines frequently. And to ensure that we stay on the cutting edge of opportunity, what are you seeing as the primary drivers for industrial investment? And what are some of the characteristics of Greater Albuquerque that really align to those drivers?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Chad. So as Riley touched on, we are starting to see trends of Albuquerque and some of these smaller markets becoming a stronger regional hub. And I think that Albuquerque is one of those cities that has a metropolitan area that is well positioned to really meet the needs of many population centers, specifically population centers within an 8-mile drive time. And why that's become a more critical component is obviously there's been more regulations on trucking and how long drivers can be on the road. So really being able to consider ourselves as more of a regional hub and meet those 8-hour drive times is critical and also very beneficial to our location. We service not only the state of New Mexico, but we also have access with 2 major interstates, so I-25 going north-south and Interstate 40 going east-west. And I-40 is truly a strong conduit that connects the east all the way to the west. So that traffics us through California and gets us pretty far west as well. So that's a great distribution hub and something that we have started to see as a very strong trend for many of our distributors who are looking to locate in Albuquerque and where they want to be. So we serve, of course, Southern Colorado as well. And as Riley had pointed out before, you know, some of those larger centers like your Denver areas, they struggle to meet the needs of some of those Southern Colorado towns because even though they are within the same state, it's sometimes difficult to navigate based on regional location and mountains and all of that. So it's very important that we are constantly positioning ourselves to understand what the greater market reach is. And in an effort to be on the more competitive side of where we are with innovation, I think that we've seen a very strong growing, we've seen a lot of developers in our area starting to consider moving or building new spec projects here in Albuquerque. And that's been something that has not really been done in about 15 years or so. So having some of our key developers taking the risk and investing in our community is also very strong showing of a strength. And we're really excited to have some spec projects coming out of the ground. And we're filling those projects with regional distributors, which is very exciting. So I think that we are well positioned, and we're also in a place right now where we're starting to replace some of our antiquated buildings. I think another trend that we've seen across the country is the fact that a lot of industrial projects hadn't been built in, you know, almost 20 years. And so ceiling heights, the column spacing, some of the critical items that more of our innovative distributors are needing these days are not being met. So developers are certainly paying attention to what's happening on a more, you know, national basis or global basis, and making sure that they're performing to the specifications that are going to be needed for Amazon and for these other larger distributors to be able to come into our market and have a more revamped inventory.
Yeah, no, I love that. And, you know, I want to kind of loop back around, you know, on one point and relative to our proximity to market and our ability to kind of get product to market quickly if you will. Wanted to kind of loop around with you and ask the question, where are you seeing kind of pockets of industrial growth? Are you seeing those situated around the major transportation corridors, or how are we well positioned in regards to our roadway infrastructure and the movement of goods?
Yeah, absolutely. And great question, Chad. So as I gently touched on, we do have the two main interstates, both I-25 and I-40, and we're really seeing a concentration of growth in our industrial markets around those main corridors. So what we refer to as kind of the West I-40 distribution hub. And when I say that, I mean I-40 from about Unser West. So that would be Unser 98th Street, Arroyo Vista, Trisco Vista, heading out west. We're really seeing a large influx of new projects hitting that market, that quadrant of town. So Amazon was obviously one of those companies that saw the access as a positive and decided to locate out there. But you guys have also done some great work in bringing Tempur-Pedic to our market. We've also grown Shamrock Foods, Benny Keith, and many other distributors. And we're seeing some of our hometown developers now targeting those areas as well. So one of the spec projects that our company represents is the West Point 40 industrial project with Titan Development, and they are intentionally positioned off of 98th Street with very quick access to I-40, and that is being highly regarded from the folks that we're talking to. It's great to have that, you know, two-turn access onto a main distribution corridor. So that's obviously been the West I-40 trend that we've seen taking off really well. But we also have some good activity near I-25. So the South Valley and Mesa del Sol, which are located on the South I-25 corridor, have seen a lot of growth. We've seen more growth there as more of the local and regional distributors, because that's truly the conduit that connects us to Santa Fe, to El Paso, to some of those markets. But we are seeing a lot of growth in those areas. New Mexico Transload, which is one of our major rail served communities, is also in the South Valley. So we have seen a lot of activity happening in and around that area. And further north, North I-25, that's always been a heavily sought after quadrant of town. It gives us very, very quick access once again to Santa Fe. It gives us great access to Southern Colorado, and it's where some of the newer projects have taken place, because that has been one of the last areas to develop. So those are truly the three primary areas in which we are seeing large industrial activities.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Northwest and South. I can tell you that, the trifecta. That's awesome. Well, thank you, Alex. And, I want to fold Geneve into the conversation here. We've touched on it at a high level this morning, and we do show distinct advantages across both cost and quality factors for industrial investment here within the region. And I'm curious, and Alex alluded to it, what have been some of the more major transactions or wins over the past, say, 12 months? And what do you see on the horizon for construction activity and planned development opportunities for anyone that has a potential project or might be considering Greater Albuquerque as their next location of choice?
Yeah, great question. And, excellent job, Alex and Riley, in setting the stage for this. It is really exciting to see the attention that we are getting nationally, not just locally, but nationally. Obviously, people have looked at our sister markets, Denver and Arizona and Texas, and have circled around us for quite some time. But now people are really starting to see the light about the many benefits that make our city and our area just a standout that deserves the attention to look closer at what you can find. And obviously, I will dive into some of the success stories that we are seeing, but, I just want to touch on some highlight things in the New Mexico area. People are looking at us because we are a low risk location, and we talked a little bit about our transportation and our highways and our rail. We don't get the weather that other areas do that allows our infrastructure to continue and to run full speed ahead. We have such a great business climate that you really need to talk about that. And a lot of the success stories that come into the area are supported by the great business climate. And, through that, you have, our low energy costs, low property taxes, affordable real estate and cost of living, qualified production workforce, We have, I think we're like one of the top PhD per capitas. We have these 70,000 plus college students that can support, Chad, you talked about our workforce, that we have skilled workforce here. So there's just a lot of the things that, site selectors are diving in and wanting to identify in our area. And, they're making decisions to move here. And some of the success stories we have seen in the area, significant step forward in industrial development or locations. We can't talk about distribution without talking about Amazon, and that is just a big hitter in the area. They started out with 2 million square feet in the area that Alex was discussing. That is on the west side of Albuquerque. They started with 2 million distribution center, found success there, and wanted to expand their footprint, and they've expanded into the Los Lunas area. For those that are not as familiar with the metro, we have Albuquerque, we have Los Lunas to the south, we have Rio Rancho to the north, all making up our metro area. And we're seeing and all along the corridor of I-25 and I-40, we're seeing significant growth in these areas. Want to talk about, future development in these areas. Rio Rancho, while it's not on the I-25 corridor, it does have significant housing support to support the families that are bringing the businesses, the CEOs, and everyone that's coming in with the businesses. It supports that life, that living, and that balance there. So we have to recognize that. But Amazon is a huge crux. Next to that, looking at our national security and defense, we're looking at Kairos Power a few years ago, followed by Blue Halo. In the drug and research development, we have Kira and Mana Capital Partners, which their business, enterprise, and manufacturing. There were some big hitters this year that have really made everyone pause and take notice as to who's coming in, who's seeing value in New Mexico, and why here, why now. And they are really putting their foot forward with expanding businesses, and very exciting. Talk a little bit about the MaxQ project. This is a mixed use Class A office space located at Gibson and Carlisle. It'll be the centerpiece of an active trade area. The key components of this is its proximity to Kirtland Air Force Base and Sandia National Labs. We'll be touching a little bit about this project and what we can expect to see from it, what the activity is now. You can't, while it's not industrial specific, we really can't talk about success stories and growth without giving a nod to the movie industry and their footprint on our city and our metro area. Netflix Hub Production employs over 1,000 employees set to over the next 10 years, not to mention NBC Universal. What these groups do, they also put a demand on our industrial space. While they're not needing large distribution centers, they certainly need warehouse space for their production sets and for all of their logistics. And so they are, they certainly hold a voice at the table for their need in the industrial space. And another big nod is to Meta and Facebook. We need to talk about, their footprint in Los Lunas. So when you want to talk about Albuquerque, you got some pretty significant national names that have seen the value, want to come here. And Alex also talked a lot about some other distribution companies and their footprint on here. So some very exciting things. We're going to talk about some sites that we think would be a great fit that need some attention and to look upon. But not only national companies and are looking at us, there is something to be said about local developers and local companies that are expanding their footprint. And there's just such a need for industrial space right now that we are seeing local groups and local contractors come in and really put their foot to the table and say, hey, we need to expand and we believe in the city and we want to do the same thing. So it's very exciting to see that. And lastly, some exciting things that I think we can all stay tuned for is some infill projects. Obviously, we're talking about new development, land that is available, as we mentioned, is to the north of Albuquerque, to the south of Albuquerque, to the west of Albuquerque. And those were our key locations. But I think the need for industrial space has really shaken the dust off some old inventory that either needs to be revisited for new development, revitalized in some form, or rethought. And so those are some exciting projects that we're definitely can stay tuned for in our city, because what those sites offer, typically they already have infrastructure to them. They already have everything that checks the boxes to them. That there's no wait time on that. There is probably some demolition or some sort of revitalization to the property. But what those sites offer, they're in key locations. Okay, they're typically infill. They're along either a freeway or a major corridor. And again, the infrastructure is in location. So those are exciting projects that you don't want to overlook, and we have a lot of them coming up. And so stay tuned for that. And just very exciting, I think, in general, to wrap up some of everything we're seeing here. Invest in New Mexico. The time is now. There's so many incentives and so many opportunities in place, and we'd love to work with you and walk you through this process.
I love that. Well, let's pivot to some of those opportunities. You want to?
Let's do it.
I want to thank you three, especially for your partnership during this project itself, and for sitting today and kind of going through the book of business for our audience, and I look forward to our continued connection. So I have the pleasure of passing it over to our President and CEO, Danielle Casey, who will introduce our ABQ Sites tool, and alongside Genevieve and our colleague Daniel will illustrate some of those opportunities in the market.
Thank you, Chad. Yeah, we would be remiss if we didn't take a few minutes today to remind everyone about a really amazing online tool we have for site selection that couples really extreme, robust, big data sets along with local layers. And Daniel, who you saw featured on the previous slide, anyone with technical assistance needs or wanting to get sites either listed or understand how this program works in more depth, he is our on-the-ground staff resource and expert. So feel free to ping him or find him on our website if you start poking around on this and need help. So I'm going to walk you through just a few very cool features on abqsites.com. Encourage you to go take a look, and our partners at NAI SunVista are going to hop in with me on each of these to tell you a little bit more about the featured properties we're using as examples today. So the first feature I do want to show you all is the opportunity to do a 3D rendering on this tool. And by the way, for anyone who is either listing property or looking at this, it's completely free for use, sponsored by Area. So there's no cost at all. So that's always a good question. People look at this and think it's so cool. It's a little too good to be true. Well, that is what we do as Area, as a regional nonprofit organization, is to provide useful data tools, resources, and education. So this is an example of a property called MaxQ. You can see here that even though this site or this facility is not fully constructed, you can put 3D renderings in here, right here in this web interface, to really show what it would look like on the ground. And it's also an opportunity, if we have a specific client looking at a property and maybe a vacant piece of land, that we can even use that to show them what it could look like without any extreme GIS skills or technical talent there. And also, if you look at this site, you see some tabs at the top on occupational data, demographics, labor force. Let's go to the next image showing a little bit of this data on this MaxQ site, and then I'm going to ask Riley to speak to the property itself. But just as an example, when you look at all of those different data sets, you can look at things in this system, not just the property listing and information about the site itself with these 3D rendering layers. You can look at occupational data, you can look at demographics, you can look at labor force, you can look and see what other businesses are nearby, and you can do all of these things at a very granular level, and you can do them all within drive rings or from a distance standpoint or in drive time standpoint. So you can look at all of this data from a 5-minute drive time, for example, away from a property, or a 30-minute drive time, or again, rings in physical distance, depending on how your site selection is working. You can also look at things like consumer expenditures, wages, really understand what your workforce and talent looks like nearby, and then also get a full profile of the community that that's located in. For a little bit more about MaxQ, I think Riley's going to jump in.
Actually, Danielle, I'm going to jump in on MaxQ.
Well, there we go. Sorry.
No, not a problem. Not a problem at all.
Well,
We're
you're
really
all
excited.
equal experts, so we'll take it.
Thanks. Well, we're really excited about this tool, and I love the fact that it's something that like anybody can use. So thank you guys for simplifying things and making it easy to find sites. So I'm going to talk a little bit about MaxQ. This project has been a really good collaboration between public-private sector. This is a nod to the relationships that Kirtland Air Force Base and Sandia National Labs are building both inside the wall and outside of the wall. So the MaxQ project, as Genevieve gently touched on earlier, is going to be a mixed use office industrial or office warehouse type project that will continue the vision for the Kirtland Air Force partnership and many other defense contractors. It's going to be a great location for folks who are wanting to be close to both Kirtland and Sandia Labs and benefit from their research. We currently have 30,000 square feet under construction right now. There has already been a tenant named. Northrop Grumman will be moving into that space. And with that, we're also planning for phase 2 right now, which is going to be about a 53,000 square foot flex building as well. There's a lot of conversation right now about that anchor tenant, and we hope to have some more information on that one shortly. Jim Weibel and Keith Meyer are leading the efforts on this property, and we're really excited to see how this is going to continue that partnership, both inside the fence and outside of the fence.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that update. Another feature I want to show you about is our ability to bring in GIS layers from communities around the region. So not just one municipality or county, we can take any public layers or even custom layers that we develop and then overlay them into this tool. So what's wonderful is you can look at a property that's featured and listed. You can see all of this big data in labor, occupational data, etc. But we can also add in things like incentive layers. So what you're seeing here in a property called West Point 40 that the team's going to talk about in a second is now we've got actual zoning layers in here. So you can look at zoning, you can look at land use. We've also updated, if you go in and play with the tool, even special incentive layers like hub zones and enterprise zones all throughout the community. So if you're looking for any properties and any of those features or opportunities are important to you, we've been working with our local communities, our municipalities and counties to pull in their public layer data sets, but also bring in other national data pieces that are going to be helpful in informing site location decisions. So why don't you all tell us a little bit about West Point 40?
Thanks, Danielle. This is Riley. I'll take this one. We are thrilled about this project, West Point 40. It's the first building at the West Point 40 development that is controlled by Titan Development, and they've got big plans for the entire land area, which really spans all of the red you see kind of south of the curve of I-40. And like I said, this is the first building. It's a 150,000 square foot distribution warehouse. We are about a third pre-leased. We cannot yet disclose the name of the tenant, but it's a big national company. I'm sure everybody will recognize the name once the announcement is made. Property is under construction. I was just out there yesterday. The vertical columns are up and they're starting to put roof trusses on, and we are on track for a June 15th delivery next year. We're getting a lot of interest for the remaining space from similarly large companies. What's most attractive about this project is, as you can see on the screen here, the proximity to Interstate 40, which is a major distribution corridor as it spans from Los Angeles all the way to North Carolina through many major population centers. And this building is a matter of 2 right turns away from the interstate. You're on the freeway within seconds. It's a modern project, 32-foot clear, 52 by 50 column spacing, ample dock doors. We've even incorporated trailer parking into the development, which is a recent need that has come about for distributors. And we're thrilled for the start of this really compelling project that's going to change the landscape of the 98th Street industrial corridor. If you have any questions about the project, feel free to reach out to me, Alex Pulliam, Jim Weibel, or Jim Hakeem. We're the representatives for Titan for this building.
Awesome. I can definitely attest to the popularity and strong interest in that property and its very strategic location and great development partners. So the last piece that I do want to highlight and feature here on abqsites.com is just a little bit deeper dive into these local GIS layers that we are able to bring in. Questions that we get from site selection consultants and clients all the time that are increasing in frequency are things like, what do the transportation routes look like nearby? Where are the schools located around the community? So other community assets and quality of life and quality of place indicators are becoming increasingly important and critical, and something that's being thought about extensively. So here you just see a quick example on a key redevelopment property that we have in the market. And what you're seeing here in these layers are bike and bus routes. So if you know that you want to be really, really creative and welcoming to employees that maybe don't have cars or don't want to have that kind of lifestyle, these are really great data pieces that you can look at and see how closely that they're coming into the community. And we're continually adding additional layers and featuring things like daycare center locations, even local breweries. So stay tuned for all of that. And I'm going to toss it to the team really quickly to tell us about the opportunity on this specific property.
Thank you, Danielle. Love the one-stop shop with the sites, the GIS layers, everything, you know, that it's just so important to be able to see all this information at once and make great decisions, because you don't want to get down the road and there was some significant information that was not available to you. So bravo to everybody at Area for really pushing this forward. The opportunity here, a little bit, talked about this a little bit earlier, you know, is redevelopment and infill opportunities. This opportunity is located at I-25 and Candelaria. And the opportunity here is, you know, the end of a life cycle of a property. When something ends, there's opportunity for something to begin. And the story of this property, it's a existing hotel that is 2 hotels that has come to the end of its life cycle, and you know, just probably not the best location for a hotel. It might have been at one time, but over time this area has developed into one of the key industrial developments along the I-25 corridor. Very significant point of this property is you're not far from the intersection of I-25 and I-40, which we refer here in Albuquerque as the Big I, and which is great. So if you need to be anywhere near those corridors quickly, this is a key location. Visibility is awesome about this location. You're looking at a 3.31 acre site that obviously has infrastructure, you know, bus routes and transportation is near it, services are near it, and visibility is stacked on here. So this is one of those key sites that there's not very many opportunities in the metro to have an infill opportunity like this, especially along the corridor. Just a great key site with some good fundamentals that I think will be very enticing for a developer to come in and stake claim on this. So thank you.
Fantastic. So again, if you didn't get the message, go to abqsites.com. But I think we probably reinforced that pretty heavily in the last 15 minutes. And we have wonderful properties that NAI SunVista is listing, but we also do have properties from a lot of our brokerage partners all around the region. So it's a very comprehensive data set. So we wanted to throw this up here one more time for anybody who wasn't quick enough with their fingers to scan this QR code, or anyone who maybe wasn't checking the chat or saw that we did post a link in there. We're very excited about this report and profile. Again, we're going to be updating it, the current trend insert on a quarterly basis, and continuing to keep this fresh and updated for everyone. But at this stage in the game, we're at the end of our formal presentation, but wanted to see if anyone out there, I'm not seeing any posted yet, so I'm not seeing any Q&A. Now is your time. Speak or hold your peace, webinar attendees, if you want to post a Q&A in there. If we do get any, I'm going to ask Chad Matheson on the team to facilitate those. But in lieu of that, I would love for anyone on the webinar today, if you have any final closing comments or anything you'd like to add. What we are going to put up next is a little bit of a view on how to connect with us. How do you get connected with us? How do you follow us on social media? How are you able to find us when we keep telling you to look for all these sites? We've got all of our social media contacts there, and I will tell you that the NAI SunVista team is a social media powerhouse in our community. If you want to track and see what's going on, I would definitely follow them. Great. So does anyone, I don't know if we want to start with the NAI team, does anyone have any final closing thoughts or requests of our attendees today?
No, I think we're good. Look forward to answering questions and, give people the information they need to make some good decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. Invest in New Mexico, and we're here and happy to be a resource. And again, we're really excited about this collaborative report because it not only showcases some of the data that you've put together, but it also compiles our industrial report, which is tracked in-house. And really, we have a firm understanding about where lease rates are and where sale prices are and vacancy rates. So tune into that for quarterly updates. It's a great resource, a great tool, and we're really excited about the work that both of us have done. So thank you, guys.
Wonderful. I do have one